it led us down a path of picking an alternative lifestyle. And I get why we don't do that. Like I said, it leads us in a place where we absolve ourselves of all responsibility, and it's not a choice, and it's this and that. And I get all of that. But tonight I want to really dig into how we're born broken. That's another conversation, right? Because so often we're said that we're born, kids are perfect and they're born and they're perfect. And oh, look at her. She's got 10 toes and 10 fingers and she's perfect, right? But what happens when you find out that there's brokenness that you're born into simply because you are born fatherless? What happens in that scenario? What happens? Okay, I'm sorry. I had to make sure I had this up so that I can see my comments because I can't always see them on here. And I can't see who's on. And I know people are still jumping on to Facebook. I used to be late often, but I'm using an awesome app now that doesn't make me late. So my computer has been slow for quite some time. But I want to get into this dialogue. I have been really paying attention to a particular young lady named Jackie Hill Perry. Look her up. She's pretty phenomenal. She was in a same sex relationships for quite some time. And what jumped out at me concerning her bio, because I was looking for individuals for my podcast, that's how I even came across her. Um, the second line in her bio says she was born or she was raised fatherless, or she was raised without her father, and she experienced gender identity issues, and I was like, what? She was connecting those dots. And I'd never seen that. And it really stuck out to me. And it then put me in a place where I began to do research and begin to ask questions and look at different places and even look biblically and spiritually um, what this looks like in our lives. And I had to ask myself some real questions in that in that research. Like, well, why aren't we talking about this? Why aren't we saying this? Why aren't we connecting the dots concerning this? I don't know the answer to that. Hey, Nydia, how are you? And the more research I've done and the more information that I've pruned and pulled from looking at her stuff and some other individuals who are homosexual, who are living in same-sex relationships, who are, walking out transgender issues and an identity, going through identity, like being fluid and binary, like what? So, because I'm a person who I want to know what you're talking about, so I can question. Oh, I want to question. I have questions. My husband will tell you I ask why a lot, and how I resolve my why is I start researching and seeing what other people are saying and seeing what people, mainly people who have been in the lifestyle or who are in the lifestyle, are saying. That's what I wanted to know about this. So whatever it is, as my husband said, please, he's on here, Instagram, he's on here. Please share. I know this topic is going to get really good tonight. There was a video that he wanted me to figure out how to share with you, but because it's on Instagram and not YouTube, I'm not able to share it. We'll figure out how to do that. I got to work with my app and do a little bit better about that. My husband's like, I still don't understand what fluid is. Well, stop distracting me. So share on Instagram. You can share it directly with your friends, because we're going to talk about being born broken. Not just, you're going to be able to correlate this in your life, period. Because growing up fatherless creates brokenness. And because we're, like I said a minute ago, we're born, oh, perfect. Oh, they got the perfect this and they heart, everything's perfect, right? But that's an outward appearance. That's an external thing. And then maybe when the child gets older, it's not only a gender issue, maybe they become autistic, or you find out that they have a learning disability, or you find out, and so is that still perfect to some people? And the older you get, then you start going through trauma, and then trauma then creates other things that are happening within us that we don't always express outwardly. And I need you guys to know, that's a question too. And I'm grateful, because I did ask Nydia how you're doing, but let me back up, because we are all in isolation to some degree, some more than others. I can tell you right now, Fort Lauderdale is moving just fine. Now the restaurants are closed, but everything else seems to be open. They're closed for you to sit down, but people are walking and talking and doing all of their normal stuff. Hey, Dr. Mohair. Yeah, they're doing their normal stuff. So how are you guys doing in, in the midst of everything that's going on? I did ask Nydia how she's doing. She said she's fine. She's trying not to be bored. I feel you. And what did Nydia? Okay, come on. See, oh, let me say this. My conversation is for engagement. I don't know everything. I don't try to pretend to know everything. So I want you to engage with me. I want you to tell me whether you agree or disagree. I want you to tell me what you think. Don't mean I'll agree with you just because you said it, but it's dialogue to me. And I'm not here to attack anybody. It's just here for dialogue. Anita said, and yes, I know I was born broken and depressed as hell. I feel you. I didn't have real depression that I could recognize until maybe 2 years ago. And it was like, whoa. And now I think I'm having anxiety come upon me, which may be, see, Nydia, get him. We're gonna have to get him early tonight. He's at work too. Um, I'm having anxiety that's coming from, I think this whole thing, but there's my husband, we had a moment earlier where the cars in Fort Lauderdale, I'm so digressing right now. The cars in Fort Lauderdale, when I tell you, they love to run. They got this in this car. This car today just really took me out. It really took me out. Hi, Roger. How are you? This car really took me. It was so loud. It was like a monster truck without the headphones, and I was standing right next to it and revved up its engine. It shook me to the core, but I think that has to do with some of the anxiety that I've been dealing with as of late. But I'm not depressed, but I get. Yes, as my husband put, liquor stores are open. Everything's open in Fort Lauderdale. When I tell you it's open, it may not be for you to sit down, but it's open. People are riding their bikes. People are, there are motorcycles. People are in the stores. We had to go to the store because we got a bug situation trying to infiltrate our house. I'm like, see, even the bugs don't want to be outside. Y'all should go home. So we had to go to the store and grab some stuff this morning, and people are out. They're not, they don't care. Let me just go there. They do not care. So let's get into this conversation. Well, thank you, Roger. It's good. It's good to see you on here. It's been a long time. And yes, we have grown tremendously. We'll have to talk one day soon. I have relocated. We live in Fort Lauderdale, although I come back and forth to Atlanta for work, but I live in Fort Lauderdale now. So we'll have to talk very, very soon. Let me go into this now. As we're talking about fatherlessness and gender identity and gender confusion and homosexuality and even heterosexuality. As I told you earlier, I have been listening to, oh, wow, I'm at the CDC working, may have to jump off, so on mute. I understand. I appreciate you jumping on. As we're talking about just this whole idea of growing up fatherless, too many of us act like, we're good and we're not broken and we're not having issues and all of that stuff, right? But we are having issues. Jackie Hill Perry, when I read her bio, I'm telling you, it was one of those things. Have you ever read something and it like illuminates you, it like jumps out at you, it makes you feel this way, right? And I'm like, when I read that she was fatherless and experienced gender identity confusion, I was like, I've always thought they went together, but we're not able to say that in the world we live in. We're not supposed to say that. And she was saying it. The more I researched her book, Gay Girl, Good God, is an amazing book. I had the Kindle version and I read this book. This book breaks down sin is sin. So stop getting into categories of sin. That's how I want, like this conversation is going to intersect your life and your journey with how you then kind of transpose some of that onto the same sex community as well. So two of the things that she brought up, that when somebody challenges you, right? When somebody tries to challenge your position, you have two positions in life or in that moment: offense and discouragement. Raise your hand if when somebody told you what you were doing was wrong, although you felt that was right and you were raised that way and your brokenness was speaking to you, you felt offended and you felt discouraged by what they were saying. Put a 1 in the box if you felt any of those. Put a 2 in the box if you don't know what I'm talking about. Because offense causes you to go on the defensive as well. So you start to attack back, right? So I want to see what you guys say. Put a 1 in the box if that's you. Like, you're trying to talk to me about what I've done and who are you? Who made you God, right? 1 in the box. Roger said 1. Right. Nydia put one over here too. She was like, yeah, no, don't try to tell me what to do. That's that issue of right and wrong. Who made you judge? Remember those terms? Who made you judge? Well, somebody might have done that. Brian said one. Nydia says offense causes you to lash out. Come on, Nydia. This is my girl on here. She gonna tell. And Brian put one across the board. Wait, I tried to click on this one. He put one. Because that's our natural response, especially when you're born broken and you don't want anybody to tell you what to do. I'm telling on my husband right now. My husband is the kind of guy who'll say, I told him this yesterday, don't be mad, babe. That's part of the journey. You get to be thrown under the bus sometimes. I told him I'll put on his grave, on his gravestone, on his headstone, don't tell me what to do. That's his line. He don't want you to tell him what to do. I will. That's part of his upbringing. He's the baby of 6, so he got away with a lot of stuff that me being the oldest of 2, I ain't get away with that stuff. So I'm gonna leave him alone for right now because I know he's watching. I know he's watching from work. So let's talk about this place of offense. The place of offense says that I have a right to do what I want to do and I have a right to be who I want to be. And who are you to tell me otherwise? And so that born broken gives you a place where you feel you have the autonomy to live your life the way you want to live your life outside of God's will and God's purpose for your life. And how many of you know that when you're in God's purpose for your life, you flourish, you thrive, you grow, you have all of these different moments that exist. And it's not that it's without striving. It's not that it's without trials and tribulations and struggles. Trust me, I know I've been through quite a few of my own. But I want you to understand that you don't get to have autonomy and then expect everything to go a certain way. If you're going to make the decision, you have free will. If you're going to make the decision, you have to own the consequences. And when we're born into a broken state, when we're born broken, a lot of times we're not taught the right decisions. A lot of times we're not taught the right way to move and the right way to go. And then we have to learn the hard way. And in learning the hard way, we learn through trauma. The hard way is learning through trauma. And then by the time you get to the understanding, you got to work backwards through all the trauma that you've experienced. How many of you have dealt with that? Where you've had to work through all of the trauma, all of the challenges, all of the situations that you finally got the answer and the solution. And now you've got to work back through all of the trauma in order to trust it, in order to trust what you now know. I've been there. I didn't know how to run this business. I didn't know what I was doing. Roger can tell you. But I've learned through trial and error, which is not the best way to learn. It's just not. But when there wasn't anyone doing this kind of work, and when people would say, oh, I'm going to help you, I believed them, not making them put their money where their mouth was first. And then I got myself into situations. Born broken doesn't just mean that it's internal. Sometimes that internal clock is affecting your dollar amount. Look, I'm going to lean in on some of y'all right now. Sometimes you're just broke because you're broken. Like sometimes that's what that is. Sometimes your money situation is funny because there's a brokenness on the inside of you. Like you broke, period. And my husband said, I would appreciate you staying out of my personal affairs. Let me see what Nydia says. Nydia says, I was the only child for 12 years, got away with nothing. Yeah, and then that child who came after you, Nydia, got away with everything. At least that's what it was in my household. Chris says, hardest part is caring for someone you had children with who were broken and you thought you could fix them. Ooh, you was Captain Save a Chick. That's what I'm gonna call it. I'll be nice. You can't fix it because it's not your job to fix it. I think this is how I feel about relationships and marriage. I believe marriage is a healing experience. I believe it's redemptive. I believe that's the intent of it. I believe if you pick the right person out of your healed place, then they can come and add another layer of healing because you're not perfect. You're not going to look perfect. But there are things that are going to come out once you get married, once you're in a covenant relationship, which is safe, right? That comes out that then that person has the anointing. If you picked not out of your trauma, but out of your healed place, not perfection, not totally healed, or let me say out of your whole place. if that's what we're going to say, if you pick out of your whole place, not the place of being needy, not the place of I gotta have a man or I gotta have a woman because I'm bouncing from one relationship to the next and I'm not doing what I need to do for me and all of those things, right? And I need somebody to come in and save me and do that, then you're gonna pick the wrong person every time. But if you pick someone out of your whole place, that's a message. Then you will find a person who's anointed to help heal the other places within you that you have suppressed or don't even know exist, right? That's what is important to understand. So when you're trying to save someone, although you see they're broken, if they're not ready to accept it, if they're not ready to deal with it, then there's nothing that you can do. You can't lead a horse to drink the water. Like you can lead them to the water, but they may not drink it. And that is the challenge. That's why I said on a Facebook Live that I did the other day, yesterday I think it was, you have to be careful who you connect with, because in the midst of that, you can't, if they're broken, like you can't make them go to therapy. You can't make them identify their broken place. When they're born broken, when you're born fatherless, fatherless is a broken place. I know we're like, well, a lot of us are fatherless and we good and I'm good and this is good. You're not good. Stop lying to yourself. As they say, denial is a river over there. Like you are not okay. And let me just go here. I've said this before. If you just cool with being okay, then that's on you. I'm not cool with just being okay. Okay is I want to be better than okay. Okay. I want to be great. I want to be in God's will. I want to be where he's called me to be. Right? That's where I want to be. So for those of you who get caught up in don't tell me, what to do and, you know, all of this and you created this way and that way and all of these different things, you've got to recognize that that's coming out of your broken place. That's coming out of your trauma. And then you choosing people out of this place. And that's why Chris was like, now you have children with this person who's broken that you thought you could fix. And now they're instilling brokenness onto your children. And now that goes into a new generation because you didn't you didn't help a person, or you didn't pick a person who was whole or who had overcome the challenges that they had endured in their lives. And that's why you got to ask come on, Nitty. And Nitty said, I want to be extraordinary. Extraordinary. Yes. I feel you on that, girl. That's the word. I don't want to be ordinary. I don't want to be okay. Brian, let me see what you said. He said, it's all about perception. Even though another may not act like us, who or what gives them a right to tell us that we are wrong for acting or feeling the way that we do? See, that becomes a problem, right? Because if they are giving you logical sense, it's not about there's more than one way to skin a cat. Some stuff is just wrong and some stuff is just right. That's what we're going to get. I still got some stuff. We got a minute. We got 30 more minutes on here. I still got some layers to this thing, right? Because it isn't all about perception. Some stuff is just wrong and some stuff is just right. And that's where we have to understand. That's what we got to understand. That's why the words exist, right and wrong. You can have the perception that it's okay to rob a bank because you need money. That's your perception. But I promise you, you're going to jail because it's wrong. It's illegal. And even in it being illegal, the scripture also says, and I always go into my scripture. That's who I am. So if you don't want scripture to talk to you, then you might want to get on another page. Because right and wrong for me is not just, I can't see it. It's bigger than what we think as people. It's bigger than that for me. Okay, so just be clear on that. But scripture says there are things that are right unto man. There are even things that are lawful and expedient, but they are not good for us as people. So it's lawful, but it's still in God's eyes. Sometimes that's illegal in his eyes, yet man has made it legal. So I think you gotta be careful on how you even deal with that. But I get that you think that's your feeling, that is perception. Well, I guess it is. It's an action that takes place. It's not even about them having the right. It's about really recognizing and having a moral compass. And everybody has that. I got you, Brian. I got you. That's more than a perception. That's a bias. Okay, that's a different situation. Let me see what Nydia says here. She says, you cannot fix or change someone who doesn't see anything wrong with their actions unless they feel it or believe it. In their heart, they may remain the same. Come on, let's go here. So, as we're talking about fatherlessness and gender identity, homosexuality, effeminate, masculinity. We've talked about an effeminate male and a masculine female. We've discussed these terms. We've gone through this process, right? When we get into what Nidhi is talking about, right? Fixing someone if they don't see anything wrong with their actions. So the offended, this is something I'm quoting Jackie Hill Perry intentionally, and I want to give her credit. She said the offended are offended because they think they are superior to God. I even put on here, or they just simplify he doesn't exist. So the way you get rid of feeling broken when you're fatherless, the way you get rid of feeling wrong when that's how you feel, the way you get rid of all of that is you simplify it down to God doesn't exist. Some of our great philosophers, from Nietzsche to Plato to Home, like they all were fatherless. Did you guys know that? So some of their philosophies are skewed by their father wound. It's filtered through that. A lot of you have that same filter. You're filtering through your father wound. And so your father wound is telling you, who are you to tell me I'm right or wrong? Who are you to tell me I don't have a right to feel the way that I do? Who are you? What gives you the right? You don't know my journey or my experience. You're filtering it through your father wound, whether you're heterosexual or homosexual. One of the things that Becca talked about was she had a very hard time relinquishing control to her husband because of how she was raised. And then when I did send her what I promised her last week about the first stage, trust and mistrust. And when she came back, she was like, man, this explains a lot. It explains a lot. And that's the first stage of development. That's the first stage of how we come into this earth. And if our parents, when we cry, don't come and save us, if our parents don't love on us, Chris said, there it is, Chris, there it is. You're not my daddy. That's the answer. But your daddy wasn't around. And that's an expression right there that's filtering through your father wound. Becca was sharing with us how that has caused her challenges. And it's caused her relationship with her husband to have issues. And so when we're looking at this fatherlessness, gender identity, role confusion, gender confusion, fluidness, one girl told me she was homo flexible. What made her homo flexible was the fact that if a guy was super effeminate, he was her type because she's masculine. But she was more attracted to females. This was a crazy conversation at my girl Lauren's house. It's a crazy conversation, but I was all engaged because I was trying to figure out where she was going. And it helps me for this conversation. This girl said homo flexible, which is fluid. I like who I like. But her homo flexible had to do with if he was effeminate. He had to be effeminate. She showed me pictures of guys that she was attracted to. She showed me pictures of her ex-husband. She was married. And he was not as effeminate as I thought he would be. But then other guys that she's dated, super effeminate. Not just in their dress, but in their posture. Because she was the masculine energy in the relationship. This thing, when I tell you, I'm like, this is how people find themselves in relationships, in same-sex relationships. It's from a broken place. And I say this because my conversation with my friend Aaron this weekend, so I'm saying his name, I won't get into his last name, but I want to share the conversation I had with Aaron. Aaron was talking to me about resolving his spirituality as well as his relationships and who he's attracted to, his same-sex attraction this weekend. And I was like, are we really having this conversation right now? Like, he just started the conversation. He's not seen Healing Tuesdays. He didn't know what I was talking about. And he began to talk to me about the men that he's attracted to. He's now in a relationship. Since I've known him, he's been my trainer, one of my dance instructors in Atlanta. He now lives in Omaha, Nebraska, and he was expressing how he'd gone through these challenges in life. And I said, Aaron, I gotta ask you, because I've been having this conversation on my Facebook Live. I said, do you correlate your fatherlessness to your relationship with your same-sex relationships? And he said, absolutely. He said, absolutely. These are his words because I had to write them down. He said, I know I'm looking for my father in the men that I'm looking to date. He knows, there's no question in his mind that he's looking for his father in the men that he's desiring to date. And he's looking, like checking them out, trying to figure out who's who. Let me go here with you in the heterosexual world. Y'all do the same thing. You guys are grow up fatherless and then want to date someone like your father, whether he's the bad boy, the old guy, the guy who only provides, the guy who's an affection. You go looking for your father. But yet we judge, not recognizing that they're picking out of the same trauma you're picking out of. And then I had to ask my friend this question. And I'm going to ask you guys the same question, whether heterosexual, homosexual, fluid, whatever you are. How do you reconcile the fact that you're choosing a partner